And welcome to RTF Sports Talk. I am Maka Buckheister, the host of today's show. As always here, I am joined with my man, Marcus. Marcus, how is your afternoon starting?
It's going pretty good, Michael. Just sitting here contemplating some of the games and, just thinking about it's a fun time of year because I love basketball. I mean, it's my passion. I actually get more emotional during football season. I get a little more wilder, but basketball is my passion. I love my Spurs, and I love the NBA in general. If my Spurs weren't in it, I'd still be watching. So I'm just thinking about the matchups. And
before we get into the basketball talk here, let me start with my daily baseball talk. Royals lost again last night. We are now 2-10, fifth in the Central Division here. But Marcus, there are three streaks that are currently happening in the Major League Baseball that I want to tell you. What do you think is more impressive?
Okay.
Merriweather for the Royals ended his 31-game hit streak last night. He did not record a hit, so he had hits in 31 straight games dating back to 2018. The Seattle Mariners have started the season off with 15 they have had at least one home run in 15 straight games to start the season. So as a team, I think they have 24 or 25 home runs. That is never happened in the Major League Baseball season ever. Or Chris Jones for the Orioles. He is now 0 for 54 to start the season. He has not had a hit since September 15th. Since that time, 576 players have had hits, including 57 pitchers. So which three of those streaks that are current or has just ended is a more impressive in your eyes?
God, it's got to be Davis. I mean, I mean, I guess it can happen even though it's never happened before.
Yeah.
What is he? He's over 53. That is absolutely incredible.
I believe I saw a stat where the record is 0-60 is the Major League record of at bats without a hit. But yeah,
I don't root for ill will on people like that. So, God, I hope that's just 2 more games.
Yeah.
So probably maybe 3 if he gets some walks. But God, I hope he doesn't get that. And the 31-game hit streak, that's pretty darn impressive too. I think that's more impressive than the home run thing for Seattle you were talking about. 31.
Yep.
The record's DiMaggio 56. And then I think second is Pete Rose with 44.
Sounds
so
right.
You get to 31. That's pretty darn impressive. Although the one thing that, I guess it's stretched over 2 seasons.
Right.
That's a little bit.
That's kind of an asterisk. Yeah.
Right, a little bit asterisk, but 30 to hit. I'd love to hit in the game once. 31 straight times would be unbelievable. Yeah.
Right. I mean, that is the longest streak since 2003. But I mean, the Seattle Mariners hitting home runs in 15 straight games to start the season. That is impressive because that is a whole team effort. That's just not one guy just like stroking the ball.
But
it's the whole team,
I think you're going to see a lot of it's more home run hitting today in today's game.
Right.
That's why you're seeing more Tommy John surgeries because guys are throwing harder. It's 20 years ago when a guy threw like 96, it was 97. You were like, oh man, that guy, put him as your closer. Now you got a bunch of guys throwing 90. It's just almost feast or famine. You go up there ripping at the ball.
Right.
Guys are throwing harder now. So I think you're going to see some of those home run streaks, go by the wayside.
Yeah, and speaking of that, last night there was forgot who it was. I did not write this down, but this just came to mind. They had the fastest home run exit velocity at 119 miles an hour. So the ball went from point A to point B going 119 miles an hour. It was like a 430-foot home run. It got there in like 3 seconds or something like that. It was something ridiculous. Yeah. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, that's incredible. And man, as soon as you mentioned that 119 miles going the other way, I'm hoping that there was nets up, I mean,
right.
No, because if he misses on that ball and hits it somewhere, or hits like a streamer down the line, that could hit somebody eating nachos. Man, and that's been a problem in Major League Baseball. People have been getting hit more and more. I think in Japan they extended the fence out a little more. I don't know if you knew anything about that.
I actually just went to the Louisville Bats game. They are a AAA affiliate for the Cincinnati Reds last night. They actually have the sideline Nets going
Yes.
pretty much the length of the field now. It's probably 100 feet past third base. So
Yeah. No, if I took any of my children, I'd make sure that we're not chomping down on a hot dog as a pitch is. You
right,
know what I mean? We're gonna
yeah.
be ready to go. You can't be on the phone with Susie and have you got to pay attention, and you'll get hit.
Right, but
So
I
yeah,
love
that's
baseball,
that's
man.
that
Like,
that's dangerous, man. 119 miles. I mean, 119 miles per hour going back the other way. That ball was obliterated. Then
yep.
yeah,
That ball was officially a felony for going triple the speed limit.
right,
but
right. That's good.
let's go ahead and get into the Western Conference Finals here. Tomorrow, Saturday afternoon, is the start of the NBA Finals, and it kind of had like a March Madness type of feel. They have 4 games happening on Saturday. I think it's another 3 games happening on Sunday. So it's very, very exciting of like what's going on here. But looking at the finals here, the Western Conference, you have Golden State versus the Clippers, the 1-8 seed. 4-5 seed, you have the Houston Rockets taking on the Utah Jazz. 3 seed Portland Trailblazers, really underrated Portland Trailblazers, take on Oklahoma City. In the 2-7 seed, you have your Spurs taking on the Nuggets. So let's just start right there at the top. Golden State versus Clippers. Who do you got? How many games? And who to watch for?
Listen, I have 2 predictions of sweeps. One is Toronto. This will be the other one. I don't think the Clippers will be able to get a game versus the Warriors. The Warriors have been on cruise control, and their cruise control got them to 57 wins or something, 58 wins, something ridiculous. I mean, think about that for a second. Imagine being on cruise control and going 57. If they really went out tried to win every single game, they would get 70 wins. So I just don't see the Clippers. Look, the Clippers have a good team. I think Doc Rivers is coach of the year. When you trade your best player, Tobias Harris, in midseason or whenever they traded him, I forget now, but you trade your leading scorer like that, and they still stayed afloat, and they still made the playoffs, and they tied the Spurs. They could have easily been a 6 seed, the Clippers, had they just won 1 more game or 2 more games. And I love their draft picks with the last year's picks. They picked Gilgeous Alexander, 6'6" point guard, and they picked Landry Shamet, 6'5" 2 guard. That is their backcourt of the future. I love those picks, the 12th and 13th pick. I'll go on another rant here. I love DeMar DeRozan from the Spurs. I really do. I think he's a heck of a player, but I think the Spurs might have been offered Tobias Harris before Spurs made the DeMar DeRozan trade. They might have been offered Tobias Harris and the 12th and 13th pick to go along with their 18th pick, which ended up being Lonnie Walker. I probably, gun to my head, I would have rather had the 12th and 13th pick in Tobias Harris over DeMar DeRozan, because I would have drafted Alexander and Landry Shamet. Landry Shamet is a guy that is 6'5" and can shoot lights out like a Jamal Murray can for the Denver Nuggets. So I love what the Clippers have and what they have going on. They're an A seed. They have a lot of really good young talent. I just don't think they'll get a game here. I tell you what, they're probably I would probably say this is 90% of the done. They're going to add Kawhi Leonard in the offseason. And if you were to put Kawhi Leonard on that team now with Lou Williams and Alexander and Shamet, they'll be competing for the league's best record. They'll be probably behind Golden State. They'll be right. They'd probably be a number 2 seed next year and push Denver down to 3 or 4, whatever. So they're probably going to get Kawhi Leonard next year. But I like their team, but the Warriors will have woken up. This is cruise control for the Warriors. They'll wake up in the first round. The lights come on, and I see blowouts here. I don't even see them staying in the game. But that's no fault of the Clippers and Doc Rivers. I can't believe they're the 8th seed. I would have easily put Sacramento here as the 8th seed, but the Clippers played much better than Sacramento down the stretch. Doc Rivers is my coach of the year, but they're going to get swept here in this first round.
Yeah, I have to agree with everything you say there. I don't think there's going to be one close game. The only thing I disagree with you on is Kawhi going to the Clippers. I don't think that is a done deal yet. I tagged you in a post on the Twitter machine. If you're not following myself on Twitter, it's at mbuck41. Marcus is at Marcus the Freak. Speak for Yourself show. I don't know if it's on ESPN or it's on the ESPN app, but there's a bunch of old ESPN analysts on there with some some pretty good insights. Usually, they said that the LA Lakers are in the front running of bringing Kawhi to their team.
Listen, he's going to LA,
Yeah.
so I think it's the Clippers. But it wouldn't shock me at all. We talked about this a little bit the other day. First call to Jeannie Buss that I would make right after Toronto season's done, which I think Toronto's going to be in the finals, so their season's going to last another few months here. I'd make that call to Masai Ujiri, the GM for the Raptors, and I'd send him a blank check and say you can be the highest paid GM and you bring Kawhi Leonard. And that's exactly what I would do then. If he says no, then I'd go in a different direction. I'd still try to lure Kawhi Leonard. I would try to get Jerry West out of the Clipper land and bring him back to the Lakers. But I just think that Doc Rivers, the Clippers, that would be Kawhi Leonard's team. It'd be no BS through the season of what's going on here. And you match Kawhi Leonard with the young talent that they have now. I just think it's going to be the Clippers. I don't think he's going to stay in Toronto. What's funny about that is if Toronto, let's just say hypothetically, were to win the NBA championship,
right,
he would leave anyway. Because think about that for a second. He just came, he saw, he kicked butt. You know that saying, I came, I saw, I kicked butt?
Right,
yeah, that would be the perfect. Can you imagine Toronto with an NBA championship? Kawhi just came and delivered for you in 1 year and then left. That would be magical. And if I was a Toronto fan, I wouldn't even be mad. I'd be wearing my Toronto Raptors championship shirt the rest of my life. I'd be wearing a Kawhi Leonard for 1 year.
Yep.
I'd be wearing his jersey the next 10 years when I walked into the arena there in Toronto. I think that's a good possibility that even if he won a championship, he's still going to LA. So what you heard from those guys, he's going to LA. Lakers, if you want to put 50-50 on it, be my guest. But he's leaving Toronto no matter what happens. Even if he wins a championship, he's leaving Toronto. So maybe it's Lakers 40%, Clippers 60%, however you want to put it. He'll be in LA next year.
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything that you said. I believe that at one point he said he may have even wanted to leave for LA at the trade deadline even, but obviously that did not happen.
Yeah, he wouldn't have minded. He would have just said okay.
Right.
Yeah.
So a player to watch for, pretty much anybody on the Golden State Warriors would be great on your fantasy team. You can even get a bench player. He's still probably going to score 15 points off the bench. They're just going to blow this team out. And just to add to your point previously, when you said the Warriors could easily have won 70, 80 games like this year, we saw that happen in 2013 when they did go for the NBA record of 82 wins, or
72.
Right, 72 wins. And we saw what happened in the finals, and they have learned from that mistake. So I think that's why they were on cruise control, because they think they can go anywhere and win. So
and the player to watch for me, and I mentioned him already. Listen, Golden State's going to take Lou Williams out of the game.
Yes.
So Lou Williams isn't going to go for 40 or anything. So he's going to get that double teams. Landry Shamet can hit 23 footers at a premium. Look for Landry Shamet to average about 30 points a game in this series, because Golden State won't be too much worried about him as much as they will be Lou Williams.
There you go. You guys heard it here from Marcus the Freak. So, Marcus, moving on to the next set of games here. Houston Rockets versus Utah Jazz. Who do you got?
Listen, I think the Rockets just messed themselves up big time. Paul George really messed the Rockets up. If Paul George misses that shot at the last game of the regular season for the Rockets are a 2 seed. Imagine that. Now because of one shot, they went from 2 to 4, and they got in the Golden State Warriors side of the bracket. Now they got to go to Utah. Mm-hmm. And listen, I've talked to a lot of NBA analysts in my lifetime. Plus, I told you I was in the media. One of the worst places to play, especially when they have a good team. They don't even have to have a great team. It sucks playing in Utah. It's just bad things happen in Utah. I've heard that from at least 3 NBA experts that have had teams go there. It's just a horrible, horrible place for players to go, and it just, the crowd and everything. I mean, the crowd's well documented and stuff. It's just, for some reason, your shots don't fall in Utah for some reason as opposing players. I think Houston wins this series. but I think this one's going 7. And imagine the much easier time I think Houston would have had they been in the other bracket. I don't think.
Easy
But
time.
now they got to exert all this energy against Utah. They're going against a rim protector and Rudy Gobert. I know they shoot a lot of threes, so but whenever they drive to the lane, meet Rudy Gobert. He's only 7'2" and can jump really high and is a good shot blocker, maybe the best in our game today. So it might make Houston shoot even more threes. They'll probably shoot themselves out of a couple of games because the Rudy Gobert factor. They don't want to go to the drive to the hole against him. The key in this series is Donovan Mitchell. Let's see what kind of step he takes into his evolution of his basketball game. And I'll say this right here, and I'm going to mention this kind of comparison later on with the Spurs Nuggets, but if Donovan Mitchell matches Harden, like let's just say Harden has 40, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, Donovan Mitchell doesn't have to have 40. If Donovan Mitchell goes for 35, that's a win for Utah. Because NBA is all about matchups, Michael. Like, in other words, they'll cancel each other out.
Yep.
Harden's not going to win that matchup. Like, if Harden wins his matchup, if Harden has 45 and the other off guard he's playing or point guard he's playing has like 10, that's a win for Houston. It's a plus 35.
Yep.
But if Mitchell matches Harden in points, that's huge for Utah, and it won't be that much of a matchup nightmare. You can just look at it, the box score. Utah wins. You can say, okay, Harden went for 40. Well, our guy went for 35. So that was almost like a cancellation of two great players. So, like I said, Houston, I think, just really messed themselves up having to travel to Utah. Then check this out. They're going to beat Utah in 7, and there's the Golden State Warriors, who probably haven't played for about a week, just sitting at home because the NBA first round is so long.
Yeah.
That as soon as Golden State sweeps the Clippers, they can go to Cancun and St. Bart's and wherever they want to go to. They're going to be sitting around, and that's crazy. And so, Houston, I think, wins. I think they win in 7. Wouldn't shock me at all if Utah won this matchup. Houston didn't even expect to be here. The key in the series is Chris Paul, because if he's, he'll be the key to the Houston Rockets almost every series. Let's see his availability, his health. Because if you're sitting there by game 6 or 7 against Utah and Utah's extended him, and you got Chris Paul with bandages around his hamstring and icing his knees and walking like he's 55 instead of 35, advantage Utah. So this is going to be a tough series. I have Houston in 7, but it wouldn't shock me at all to see Utah win this thing in 6. It wouldn't shock me at all. But right now, I'll pick Houston in 7.
Yeah, and I am going on the other side of the coin. I am picking the quote-unquote upset. I'm going with the Utah Jazz in this one, because just like what you alluded to earlier, teams shoot bad in Utah. The overall team percentage, shooting-wise, in that stadium is down 22% as a team. That is through Alliance Sports stats there. That's where that is where I pulled that off of. And we've shown that the Houston Rockets are not a playoff team. They live and die by the 3-point shot. They broke their regular season record of 27 made threes late last week or 2 weeks ago. And when you shoot 50 3-pointers in a game and you make 27 on your home court, roughly 50%. So that goes down 20%. Now you're shooting 30%. And out of those 15 made shots that you were making earlier, now you're not making those 15 point shot or 15 shots. And that is a 45-point swing right there. So do I think they are going to score 45 less points each game? No, but they are going to score less points because shooting in Utah is so bad. Like, it is down 20% as a whole team. So that's why I'm going to go with the Utah Jazz. I think they are going to steal the second game in Houston, and they're not going to lose at home.
And I think they played last year, and part of the reason Utah lost was Ricky Rubio went out.
Yes.
And the series changed when Ricky Rubio got hurt. He pulled the Chris Paul and had to exit early. If Ricky Rubio stays healthy, Ricky Rubio is a pretty damn good basketball player. I see Utah putting up a huge fight. Like I said, it wouldn't shock me at all if if Utah won. And you talk about 3-point shooting. Houston doesn't have the monopoly on 3-point shooting.
No.
I'll tell you right now, Kyle Korver and Ingles can make threes.
Yes.
You're not leaving those guys open.
No.
So this is going to be there are going to be some nights where Utah might hit more threes than Houston. And
right.
If that happens, your prediction is going to be right. If Utah hits more threes than Houston, this thing is over because you talk about the inside, Rudy Gobert, and then I'm not forgetting his name. But God, the player I really like, Derek Favors. I've loved Derek Favors for many years. That's a pretty good inside presence versus Clint Capella and PJ Tucker.
Yeah, some more great insights there. But I do have Utah Jazz in 6. I don't see them losing at home. So 6-game series for their player to watch is pretty much any of the guards on the Houston and or the Utah Jazz team. Just like what you were saying, if a guard cancels if James Harden goes for 45 points and Donovan Mitchell goes for 45 points, they'll cancel each other out. So the next set of guards, how does that play out? I think the games are going to be winning, lost, and the guard play, and ultimately the points are going to matter because points wins games at the end of the day.
Yeah, my player to watch is Joe Ingles. He can be a playmaker and he can be a shooter. I love his game. We got a guy coming out in the draft that could be a late first-round pick from Belmont, Dylan Windler. He reminds me of Ingles a little bit. Dylan Windler reminds me of Ingles, yeah. So Ingles is a good player. And his player to watch, that guy starts hitting threes, then Ingles can also create. He's very deceptive on his creativity, his creatability for his team. I like Ingles. Ingles is a key to the match. If Ingles is hitting threes, Utah could be unbeatable.
All right, guys. So we're going to take a quick break here. On the other side of the break, we will go to the bottom side of the bracket. Some more NBA pick'ems, some more inside picks from the Western Conference side here. So we'll be right back.
All right, that was good.
Alrighty, guys, welcome back to RTF Sports Talk. I'm Michael Buckheister. If you're watching us on YouTube Live, welcome. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe to the channel below. Also hit the bell icon so every time we go live on that YouTube channel, you get a notification. We do go live Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, right around the 1:45 time frame there. If you're listening to on podcast form, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Google Podcasts, etc., consider subscribing or following that podcast as well. Leaving ranking as well. Share it with a couple friends. We can get this ball rolling and we can bring you guys some more great content. But as great content, Marcus the Freak is with us as always. Marcus, let's just get right back into it, man. The NBA playoffs start Saturday afternoon at 2:30 here on the East Coast time. So the next set of games that we have, the 3-6 seed, you have Portland Trailblazers and the Oklahoma City Thunder. Little insights on this one. Who you got?
This is a weird one for me because it looked like Portland was trying to avoid Oklahoma City. They played like 6 players or something the last game of the season, and I don't even know if they expected to win. But those young guys, I think it was Anthony Simmons, had like one of their first-round picks from a few years ago or last year or something. He had like 38 points, and he had like 36 points his whole career. So he went off, and he played like a first-round pick, like what they projected. And 6 players ended up winning the final game of the year. Portland won, and it looked like they were trying to avoid OKC. And for good reason. I normally don't pay attention to regular season because, man, regular season basketball, NBA basketball is fun to watch, but it's not. The playoffs are completely different entity. It's a little more of a slow down game. Who hits big shots and big moments and things like that. And this year, OKC swept Portland for whatever reason. Nurkic was hurt or McCollum was out, so it looks like OKC has, their number. But that being said, I'm not totally down on Portland in terms of them competing in this series. When you have 2 guards like that, like McCollum and Damian Lillard, they're going to give Portland some fits. I still see. I mean, excuse me, they're going to give OKC some fits. I still see OKC advancing in this series. I think in OKC, I think coming down the stretch, they've lost more games than they've won, which is pretty amazing when you have a combination of Russell Westbrook and Paul George. I mean, how do you lose more games than you've won in your last 20? That just makes no sense to me.
Right.
Maybe they're a little bit on cruise control. They really showed up against Houston there to beat Houston, to push Houston to the 4th seed. The key to them is Ferguson. If Ferguson's hitting threes, just like if Ingles is hitting threes, they're a different team. So if you got Ferguson out there hitting threes and Adams controlling the middle there, no Nurkic, Adams is going to be one of those guys going to average 20 boards a game. Now he doesn't have to battle a Nurkic, so that's a huge loss for Portland. I know it didn't show up as much in the regular season when they lost him, but it's going to show up here. I like Harkless and for Portland and Al-Farouq Amino. They're guys. They're those 3-and-D guys that you can switch on anything. They can pretty much guard everything. They're both about 6'8", 6'9". I like them a lot. I just don't think they have. They'll shoot themselves out of game with McCollum and Damian Lillard. I just think OKC's too strong here. OKC will show up, and it's going to be a tough series, but OKC in 6. And I hope I'm wrong because I think I'd like to see Portland advance. That's just me. I'd like to see Portland advance, but I think OKC in 6 here.
Yeah, I have to agree with you there. I'll be kind of rooting for Portland because I do think they are a very underrated team. They have made the playoffs. It seems like for the last 6 or 7 years, ever since Damian has been in Portland, they made it to the playoffs every year. That alone is just it's a pretty crazy feat to wrap your head around. But they've never done anything in the playoffs. Obviously, I don't think they've even made it out of the first round, and that streak continues this year. I think Oklahoma City is just too much for them. I think Paul George steps up and has a great series, averaging 30 points in this series, if not 35 points. Look for Russell. He will continue to get his double-doubles. He is a double-double machine, triple-double machine. It's just crazy how many triple-doubles and double-doubles he has had over the last 3 or 4 seasons, and that obviously continues in the playoffs. I don't see that changing. I'm going to have to echo your 6-game pick there. I just think Oklahoma City is too much for Portland. Paul George is going to have a great series, and we're going to see why Paul George was paid all that money to come to OKC, and why he was such a sought after free agent acquisition there.
And to me, the Nurkic loss is a big one. It'll show up here in this series.
Yeah.
Like I said, it wasn't a main factor in the regular series, but if Nurkic was healthy, right, I'd pick Portland in 7, but he's not, so I'm going OKC in 6. Player to watch here, I mentioned him earlier, is Ferguson for Oklahoma City. If Ferguson's hitting threes, Oklahoma City can be unbeatable because George and Westbrook are showing up. Now you got a third guy to watch. Leave him. Go ahead and you double Westbrook and George,
right? And
you leave Ferguson open. He'll have 7 threes every night.
I agree with you 100%. Sender. I don't have any rebuttal at all. You seem like you take the words out of my mouth and just put them down on paper there. The last series that we have on the Eastern Conference that we have not talked about, Denver Nuggets versus your Spurs here. Are you going with the Spurs?
Yeah, no, I have the Spurs in 6, mainly because Denver has come out of nowhere. They didn't make the playoffs last year. Think about that for a second. To not make the playoffs, and they didn't make the playoffs on the last game of the regular season. Had they beat Minnesota last year they would have fallen into that 8th seed. But to think about this for a second, to go from out of the playoffs to a 2nd seed, that's pretty remarkable. So what does that tell you? That tells you they have a lot of talent.
Right.
That tells you that they have guys that can fill it up and can play some basketball. To go from 9th seed to 2nd seed in a span of 10 months, that's pretty impressive. But that being said, they have to prove it to me, and so they haven't. They've had guys that haven't done it yet. I haven't seen it yet. So that's why I'm going to go with the Spurs. Now, in the annals of history, there's also been teams where you haven't seen it yet, and they showed up in the playoffs, so that you can't see it. I mean, how do you get experience? You show up in the playoffs, and just because we haven't seen it before doesn't mean it won't happen.
Right.
But in this case, I haven't seen it yet, and I'm going to go ahead and take the more veteran team. We talked about earlier about Donovan Mitchell and James Harden canceling each other out. Well, it's same thing on this end on this series. Denver's best player is a guy that actually leads them in assists, which is actually crazy. That's their 6'11", 7-foot center, power forward, Jokic. And Jokic is one hell of a talent, but that's their strength. And I understand their second can get you 25, 10, and 7 in his sleep. So that being said, I mean, we have LaMarcus Aldridge. So if Jokic wants to go for 25 and 10, LaMarcus goes for 25 and 10. That's a cancel out.
Right.
Like, in other words, their strength is our strength. Excuse me, I'm speaking of the Spurs. Denver's strength is the Spurs' strength. So you look at Jokic, if he wants to have that 30 and 10, well, we've got a guy that goes 30 and 10, 25 and 12. You know, put the numbers however you want them. If that happens during the season, during the series, advantage Spurs. If you're going to be looking at the box score on Sunday, and you see Jokic 28 and 13, and you see LaMarcus 28 and 13, that's a win for the Spurs. I'd be surprised if the Spurs lost that game. And then you secondarily, also same kind of thing in a little bit. It would be a win for the Spurs, I think. If you see Jamal Murray with 25 and you see DeMar DeRozan with 28, that's a win for the Spurs. That's almost like another cancel out. So you just keep on going down the list. I think the Spurs have players that have done it before, seen it before, and know how to play in these playoffs and know the situations. It would absolutely shock me. I would surprise me, maybe not shock me, if Denver's bench, guys named Beasley and Morris and Plumlee and Lyles, those guys do better than our bench, like Bertans and Rudy Gay and right. Marco Bellinelli and Patty Mills. That would actually surprise me. Denver has a depth problem, in my opinion, for the playoffs. I think the Spurs' depth here wins this series. And even if it goes 7, I think it's Spurs in 6. And people automatically will say, oh, well, Denver's got it in 7. Not necessarily. I could see a situation where all the pressure's on Denver. They're the second seed going home to a game 7. And who do you trust more? Do you trust guys off their bench named Beasley and Morris to outshoot Marco Bellinelli and Patty Mills? Who Marco Bellinelli and Patty Mills, they've hit shots to win championships. They've hit shots. Both of them played in a couple of finals. Won one, lost one. Should have won both of them in 2013 and 14. So I trust our guys, the Spurs guys, a little bit more. And plus, LaMarcus Aldridge, he hasn't won a championship, but LaMarcus Aldridge has gotten to the Western Conference Finals. Anybody on anybody on Denver have they gotten there? Did Millsap make it to the Eastern Conference Finals with Atlanta? And then they got swept by LeBron. I mean, he's the only one
right.
that you could say he's got some experience. So I'm going to go ahead and pick the Spurs on experience and some talent. I mean, listen, DeMar DeRozan, for whatever you want to say about him and his shortcomings at his playoffs, he's been pretty steady in the playoffs. I mean, in terms of he hasn't elevated his game to have these monster. Oh, you remember, but he hasn't done the Kyle Lowry thing either. 2 for 19.
Yeah.
He's just been okay DeMar. So I hope he can step his game up. But even if he's just regular season DeMar and get you 21 and 7, that's fine with me because we have other players that hit big shots and big moments. I think Spurs win in 6, and I think the Spurs could also win in 7. And I just don't see how Denver wins it. I mean, they could win it, and then Denver, will gain that experience, by beating a team like San Antonio, beating a team like Greg Popovich, or beating a coach like Greg Popovich. That's where you get the experience. So this is going to bode well for them next year. I'll tell you right now, if they beat the Spurs, look out for them for next year.
Yeah.
But I have the Spurs in 6 here.
Yeah, and even if they don't beat the Spurs, still look out for them next year because they've gained that playoff experience. I've been on record many times saying you have to learn how to win before you can win, or I'm sorry, you like you have to lose before you learn how to win. So
right.
By the Spurs beating them in 7 games in this series, they are going to learn how to play playoff basketball. They are going to learn how to, handle this, playing the same team 7 times in a row. They are going to learn how to handle a great coach in Popovich on that sideline. So I'm with you on this. I am picking the Spurs, but I'm picking them in 7 games. I think the Spurs are going to come out hot. They're going to take the first 2 games on the road, and then they're going to lose a couple games on the at home, and then they're going to go back and forth in those final couple games. So Spurs win 2 on the road, Nuggets win 2 games on the road, and then it's a back and forth. Game 7 in Denver, and I like San Antonio's odds in that game 7. I do have to agree with you with all those players to watch, but I'm going to go somewhere else. I'm going to say you have to watch Coach Popovich. You have to see how he interacts with his team in the first half of the game. Is the team motivated to play? Is he putting those younger guys in the right spots to win, etc.? Pop has been here. He's done that many times, and I don't see him faulting in that whatsoever. But I think he is the key to this game, because I do think the teams are so evenly matched in athletic-wise. At point guards, shooting guards, they will cancel each other out, and the advantage will come on the coaching depth that the Spurs have.
And also, and here's a lot of things. I think the Spurs fans, and I hear some Spurs experts here in San Antonio, they'll push the panic button if the Spurs are down 0-2. I'm not.
No.
Just because somebody goes up 2-0. Now, I do think the Spurs are going to get one, by the way. But just because somebody goes up 2-0, I've heard, it's over, right? Denver goes up 2-0, it's over. It's not over. If you're driving away from Game 4 and the series is tied 2-2, it's not over. Because the Spurs could easily go get Game 5, and maybe even Denver wins Game 6 and Spurs win Game 7. So just because you're down 0-2 doesn't mean it's over by any stretch, especially a team like the Spurs. So I don't believe that to be the case. Player to watch here, I'm going to go with one of the players from the Nuggets, and I love the guy. Will Barton, 6'6" in the triple threat position, can almost do it all. He can shoot over the top of you, he can take you to the basket. He's got a mid-range game. I mean, he is a really impressive player. He has all the skills in the world, all the talent in the world to become an NBA All-Star. We'll see where he blossoms. We'll see where he goes from here. He's been with Denver a couple years. That's Will Barton. He's an X factor, because if Jamal Murray and Jokic are going and Harris is chipping in a little bit, if they're getting 25 from Will Barton, the Spurs could be in trouble. So we'll see what happens here, but I love Barton.
And I want to echo what you said there on the 2-2 series. I think it will be a 2-2 series going into Game 5. I don't have any doubt in my mind that is going to happen. And if it's a 3-game series, it's favors Spurs 100% of the time, I think. Now if it's a 3-1 series, I'm panicking a little bit, but I still think the Spurs still have the advantage because of the experience factor. Because the Denver, they don't have that. They don't have the know-how to close out a team on the road. And I think the momentum will be on the Spurs.
Yeah, and the flip side of the argument, people picking Denver will say, hey, well, they don't know any better. They're just going to go out there and make shots, and they're going to be making shots, and they're so young. They don't know any better. They don't know how to do it, but they're still just going to be, winging it and doing it. That's also could be true. No, I mean, you never know. That's how you gain experience, and you're hitting shots all over the place. It's almost like you're too young to even know that this is a big deal.
Yeah,
that's the whole point. But not when you that might be okay if you're playing Portland. I don't think it's the same thing when you're playing Pop and you have a bench like with Bellinelli and Patty Mills, like I said, Marco Bellinelli hit one of the biggest threes in Spurs history. Miami was making a comeback, and Miami had a chance to, or they cut it. Miami had a chance to cut it to 5, and we got the ball. The Spurs got the ball, and Marco Bellinelli, just cool as can be, just made it a 10-point lead again. And all the Spurs players looked at each other like, okay, we're winning by double digits again. It's all good. It's all safe. And Miami, they ended up blowing Miami out by 20. Patty Mills has hit big shots in big moments. these guys aren't afraid to hit anything. They don't think about the moment. They just shoot it. And so I'm going to go ahead and trust Patty Mills and Bellinelli over guys like Barton, who I mentioned is an X factor, over guys like Gary Harris and Morris and Beasley. I'm going to trust Mills and Bellinelli over those guys.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying about these guys being too young to like understand the situation that they're in. I would take that argument if there's if this was a high school game. If you have freshmen and sophomores, but pretty much once your junior year of like high school, you played enough basketball, you played enough sports games, you know the situation, you know the pressure. So I don't believe that for one bit. These guys are professionals. The only thing they have going for them, if you want to play that card, is like they could be like, yeah, well, we are professionals and we are guaranteed to play. Well, not guaranteed, but we'll be here next year and the year after that and the year after that. So they aren't going anywhere. They aren't seniors in college and like this is their final series, so they won't be pressed. So that's the only thing I could possibly play on that argument is that they aren't pressed because they aren't seniors in college.
Yeah. So just to rehash, I got Spurs in 6. It could be Spurs in 7, but I'll go ahead and do Spurs in 6. I got Houston in 7. That's going to be a tough series. It wouldn't shock me at all if Utah won that thing. I got OKC in 6 because of the loss to Nurkic. I don't think they can overcome it in the playoffs. It was easier to do in the regular season. And I got Golden State in 4. Clippers are just too young. Clippers will gain this experience, and hopefully next year when they get some good free agents, namely Kawhi Leonard, in my opinion, they'll be better. But those are my 4 advancing.
Yeah, and I have Golden State in 4, and then I got Utah Jazz in 7. I have Oklahoma City in 6, and then Spurs in 7. So a lot of upsets happening. And in our opinion, on the Western side, Eastern side's pretty cut and dry. This also shows you the depth of the Western Conference, and they will be battle tested. So the team that ever makes it to the finals, Golden State Warriors, let's be honest, they're battle tested. They've been there. East doesn't have anything for them, I don't think, in the end. Any closing thoughts before we head out, Marcus?
No, I mean you pretty much nailed it. I just can't wait to watch these matchups tomorrow, Saturday. It starts at 1:30, and I know we did the Eastern Conference. I don't know if you want to come back and rehash that a little bit, but
go ahead.
I can't wait to watch the first matchup with the Brooklyn Nets and the Philadelphia 76ers. I think that is going to be a raucous series. I think that's equivalent to the Utah and Houston series. I think both those series are going 7. The Nets, I think, are going to show up and show everybody. They're kind of like the Nuggets in terms of they have a lot of young good players. So I think they're going to show up, and so we'll talk about that on the other side if you want to. But the right off the bat, the Nets and the 76ers, I think tomorrow, like at 1:30 in the afternoon. I can't wait to watch that one.
Yeah, if you want to go through your Eastern Conference picks real fast for people that didn't tune into yesterday's show or follow us on Facebook, either. If you want to go ahead and go through your picks on that one.
Yeah, I mean, I got 76ers in 7. I think the Nets are going to give them everything they can handle, especially if Embiid is hobbling.
Mm-hmm.
Joel Embiid, to me, he could be the best player in the NBA if he wasn't always hurt all the time. Because I actually would take him over Giannis because he can hit threes.
Okay.
And Giannis can't hit threes. See, Embiid can post you up, and he has all the array of moves.
You're right.
And you can't leave him. I'll leave Embiid there at the 3-point line. So, but see, I would take Giannis now because Embiid's always hobbled and hurt back and ankle, foot. Yeah, something's always wrong with him. So no question, I would take Giannis, gun to my head. But Embiid could be the better player if he's healthy. So if Embiid is not healthy going into this Nets series and he happens to miss a couple of games, I mean, advantage Nets big time. I mean, the Nets could even take control of this series. Actually, if Embiid didn't play the first 2 games, the Nets easily will steal one. And I even hate to use that word steal because it's not like they weren't looking and somebody took it from them. They would go in there and actually beat the 76ers. So that's going to be a great series in my opinion. I think the 76ers will win that game 7 at home. because of the experience, because of JJ Redick and these guys. Golly, I know Tobias Harris hasn't been too much experience. Butler. I mean, guys like that will probably win a game 7 over the Nets. But yeah, I mean, the Nets are going to take the 76ers and everything they can handle. So I like that one. The Bucks will win in 5. I think Indiana. I think that Oladipo injury sucks. I actually think that I would actually pick Indiana. Just like if Nurkic was playing for Portland, I'd pick them to beat OKC. If Oladipo was playing with Indiana, I'd pick Indiana to win this series. Let's see what Toronto sweeps the Magic. I mean, Toronto.
That's cut and dry.
Are you kidding me? Toronto's defensively can just shut anybody down. They're like we mentioned. I mentioned the other day, Virginia and Texas Tech defense. Well, the Toronto Raptors are that on steroids.
Right.
So, I mean, they're going to lock you down. I see a sweep. Orlando. Bucks over Pistons. That's going to be probably in 5. Pistons might probably get a game. Pistons will win 1. I love the Drummond effect and Blake Griffin. I like Reggie Jackson for their point guard, even though he's streaky for the Pistons. I can't wait to see Giannis go up over the top of Drummond and dunk on him. That's going to be amazing. Right. Drummond's probably going to block a couple of his shots too. So if Blake Griffin as well, that's going to be like a little back and forth thing. That's going to be fun to watch. But Milwaukee, if they're healthy, they're too tough when you got Mirotic and Lopez. And Chris Middleton on the outside. Name me 3 better shooters right now to put around a star player. Whoever put this Milwaukee team together knew what the hell they were doing.
Yes.
They brought Coach Bud's system in. You have a star player there like Giannis, and you surround him with Lopez, Mirotic, and Chris Middleton. Who are you leaving? Say you're not leaving anybody.
Nope,
so I love how they just don't have the experience either. But that's how they're gonna gain experience. So I love the Milwaukee roster. I think eventually we'll talk about this for a lot, but Milwaukee will eventually meet their doom when they play 5 great defenders like Toronto can throw out there. But we'll see what happens. And like I said, I had the Celtics over Indiana because of the Oladipo thing. If Oladipo was playing, that's a wash.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, would you agree with that? I mean, even though the Celtics are so good,
the Pacers in that series. Yes.
There's only one basketball, so we can always name. Oh well, the Celtics have Tatum and Jaylen Brown and Isaiah and all these great players. Well, they're gonna play with 4 basketballs. There's one basketball, yes. And so I would actually pick Indiana, or there'd be a wash. Whoever. I mean, I probably would pick the winner who has home court, but Indiana would have home court if Oladipo would have played. So right. I would have picked Indiana in 7 because they'd win it in Indiana. Yeah. So they're the Eastern Conference picks. I think we covered. Toronto sweeps Magic, 76ers, Nets, Bucks in 5 over Pistons, and let's then the second round of the Eastern Conference is going to be absolutely must TV like we talked about.
Yes. So just to go through my picks here, I have the Bucks in 5. Like I said, just like what you said, I think the Pistons steal 1, quote unquote steal 1. I do have the Celtics in 7 over the Pacers. I have the 76ers in 5 over the Nets, and I have Toronto as a sweep. I think the Nets are a kind of an overrated team. They just happen to hit the stride at the right time to gain a little buzz. But just like on the Western side, they don't have the experience. So that will get them in the end.
And Indiana's catching a break here because Marcus Smart's not playing.
Right.
And you might say, well, Marcus Smart's not an all. So that play the devil's advocate. I said, well, Marcus Smart ain't an all-star. But yeah, Marcus Smart gets in your face defensively. Popovich was raving about him a couple weeks ago.
There's a reason why they paid him $40 million.
Yeah, they paid him 4 years, $48 million. Yeah. I think the Spurs were in those sweepstakes too. Like, to be honest, Pop loves Marcus Smart. He gets in your ass defensively. I mean, he is there. He's a dog defender, what I like to call him. And plus, he just knows how to play the game of basketball. Yeah. If Marcus Smart ever learned how to shoot a 3, he'd be a perennial NBA All-Star. But the guy, Popovich, I think, was praising his hustle, just die for loose balls,
yes.
grabbing rebounds at 6'4". Marcus Smart goes in there. He does what Kawhi Leonard does at 6'4", grabs big time rebounds in games. So I think Indiana catches a break there. It's gonna be more of, without Marcus Smart, it's gonna be more of a fluid offensive situation.
Yep.
And Indiana won't have. I think Indiana will be able to score more effectively with Marcus Smart there. And then the 76ers, I know you have them in 5 over the Nets, but so you don't see that going too long. But my thing on that is the Nets are for real. I think they're gonna prove that. But also Embiid is hobbled. Embiid may not play. I'll tell you right now. If Embiid doesn't play that first game and the Nets get that first game, it's called
Yeah. You are right. I think that series is going to be won and or lost in the first 3 games. So it doesn't matter if it's a 2-1 or a 3-0 series. Whoever is leading that series going into Game 4 will win the series in 5. So
yeah.
So, guys, with all that being said, thank you for joining us here on RTF Sports Talk. We'll be back Monday afternoon, 1:45 p.m. We will recap some of the games that happened over the weekend, and then we're going to dive deep into the NFL draft. It is what,
yes,
12 days away. April 25th is when the draft is starting to happen, and things are starting to paint a bigger picture. There's some trades.
Yeah.
Some trades that are starting to be in effect or in talks. Draft
to
talks.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
To an NFL and college guy like me, April 25th is Christmas.
Yes.
Seriously. And then 25th is another Christmas because they do the second and third rounds. I'm a big follower of college football, so you watch these players get drafted, and like we talked about that one day. I said even if it's a Auburn tackle, we've watched him play, and he went in the third round. I mean, the draft is so much fun. I can't wait. We'll get into that next week. And then on Monday is going to be a lot of fun because we're going to have actual games to talk about.
Yes.
We'll see what happens. Games most everybody will have played all their game 1s, and we'll be getting ready for game 2s on Monday night.
Yeah, very exciting time, guys. And if you follow hockey, hockey playoffs started.
They did. That's right.
Like this past night. Then we had the NCAA hockey Frozen Four. Their championship game is Saturday, I think it is. I'm not for sure. I remember it, but it's their championship game's happening. So guys, I think April is the best sports month of all time besides October. I think October is ultimately the best sports month with the NFL happening again and World Series and whatnot. But April, right up there as well. Every sport happening. Everything's happening.
We'll rank our best months of sports. October is definitely one.
Yeah.
Football, you're in week 6 or 7, and then the World Series is going on. That's a fun time.
And basketball starting too, at that point. So
yeah, that's good. Yeah.
so guys, join us Monday afternoon, 1:45 p.m. Eastern time, live on the YouTube channel. Be shortly up after on the podcast form. Shortly after that, as always, guys, thank you for joining us. Like, comment, subscribe, share with a couple friends, and we'll catch you guys on Monday. Have a good weekend.